But perhaps some distant sound disturbed him, and he added hastily, "But I wish he would come back and tell us whether he had heard anything more about Cinderella." They talked of Cinderella, and Toodles was confident that his mother must have been very like her. It was only in Peter's absence that they speak of their mothers, the subject being forbidden to him as silly. "All I remember about my mother," Nibs told them, "is that she often said to my father, 'Oh, how I wish I had a checkbook of my own.' I don't know what a checkbook is, but I should just love to give my mother one." While they talked, they heard a distant sound. You or I, not being wild things of the woods, would have heard nothing, but they heard it, and it was the grim song, yo ho, the pirate life, the flag of skull and bones, a merry hour, a hempen rope, and hay for Davy Jones. At once the lost boys. But where are they? They are no longer there. Rabbits could not have disappeared more quickly. I will tell you where they are. With the exception of Nib, who has darted away to look around, they are already in their home under the ground, a very delightful residence of which we shall see a good deal presently. But how they have reached it? For there is no entrance to be seen, not so much as a large stone, which, if rolled away, would disclose the mouth of a cave. Look closely, however, you may note that there are 7 large trees, each one with a hole in a hollow trunk as large as a boy. These are the 7 entrances to the homes under the ground, for which Hook has been searching in vain for these many moons. Will he find it tonight? As the pirates advanced, the quick eye of Starkey sighted Nibs disappearing through the wood, and at once his pistol flashed out, but an iron claw gripped his shoulder. "Captain, let go," he cried, writhing. Now for the first time we hear the voice of Hook. It was a black voice. "Put back that pistol first," he said threateningly. "It was one of those boys you hate. I could have shot him dead. Aye, and the sound would have brought Tiger Lily's redskins upon us. Do you want to lose your scalp?" "Shall I after him, Captain?" asked pathetic Smee, "and tickle him with my Johnny Corkscrew?" Smee had pleasant names for everything, and his cutlass was Johnny Corkscrew because he wiggled it in the wound. One would mention many lovable traits in Smee. For instance, after killing, it was his spectacles he wiped instead of his weapon. "Johnny's a silent fellow," he reminded Hook. "Not now, Smee," Hook said darkly. "He is only one, and I want mischief all the 7. Scatter and look for them." The pirates disappeared among the trees, and in a moment their captain and Smee were alone. Hook heaved a heavy sigh, and I know not why it was. Perhaps it was because of the soft beauty of the evening. But there came over him a desire to confide to his faithful boatswain the story of his life. He spoke long and earnestly, but what it was all about Smee, who was rather stupid, did not know in the least. Anon, he caught the word Peter. "Most of all," Hook was saying passionately, "I want their Captain Peter Pan. 'Twas he cut off my arm." He brandished the hook threateningly. "I've waited long to shake his hand with this. Oh, I'll tear him." "And yet," said Smee, "I've often heard you say that the hook was worth a score of hands for combing the hair and other homely uses." "Aye," the captain answered, "if I was a mother, I would pray to have my children born with this instead of that." And he cast a look of pride upon his iron hand, and one scorn upon the other. Then again he frowned. "Peter flung my arm," he said, wincing, "to a crocodile that happened to be passing by." "I have often," said Smee, "noticed your strange dread of crocodiles." "Not of crocodiles," Hook corrected him, "but of that one crocodile." He lowered his voice. "It liked my arm so much, Smee, that it has followed me ever since, from sea to sea and from land to land, licking its lips for the rest of me." "In a way," said Smee, "it's sort of a compliment." "I want no such compliments," Hook barked petulantly. "I want Peter Pan, who gave the brute its first taste for me." He sat down on a large mushroom, and now there was a quiver in his voice. "Smee," he said huskily, "that crocodile would have me before this, but by lucky chance it swallowed a clock which goes tick-tick inside it, and so before it can reach me, I can hear a tick and bolt." He laughed, but in a hollow way. "Some day," said Smee, "the clock will run down, and then he'll get you." Hook wetted his dry lips. "Aye," he said, "that's the fear that haunts me." Since sitting down, he felt curiously warm. "Smee," he said, "this seat is hot." He jumped up. "Odds bobs, hammer and tongs, I'm burning." They examined the mushroom, which was the size and solidity unknown on the mainland. They tried to pull it up, and it came away at once in their hands, for it had no root. Stranger still, smoke began at once to ascend. The pirates looked at each other. "A chimney!" they both exclaimed. They had indeed discovered the chimney of the home under the ground. It was the custom for the boys to stop it with the mushroom when their enemies were in the neighborhood. Not only smoke came out of it, there came also children's voices, for so safe did the boys feel in their hiding place that they were gaily chatting. The pirates listened grimly, and then replaced the mushroom. They looked around them and noted the holes in the 7 trees. "Did you hear them say Peter Pan's from home?" Smee whispered, fidgeting with Johnny Corkscrew. Hook nodded. He stood for a long time in thought, and at last a curdling smile lit up his swarthy face. Smee had been waiting for it. "Unrip your plan, Captain," he cried eagerly. "To return to the ship," Hook replied slowly through his teeth, "and cook a large, rich cake of jolly thickness with green sugar on it. There can be but one room below, for there is but one chimney. The silly moles had not the sense to see that they did not need a door apiece. That shows they have no mother. We will leave the cake on the shore of the mermaid's lagoon. These boys are always swimming about there, playing with the mermaids. They will find the cake and they will gobble it up because they have no mother and they don't know how dangerous 'tis to eat a rich, damp cake." He burst into laughter. Not hollow laughter now, but honest laughter. "Aha, they will die." Smee had listened with growing admiration. "It's the wickedest, prettiest policy ever I heard of," he cried. In their exultation they danced and sang. "A vast belay when I appear, by fear they overtook. Naught's left upon your bones when you have shaken claws with Hook." They began the verse, but they never finished it, for another sound broke in and stilled them. There was at first such a tiny sound that a leaf might have fallen on it and smothered it, but as it came nearer, it was more distinct. Tick, 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 tick. Hook stood shuddering, one foot in the air. "The crocodile," he gasped, and bounded away, followed by his bosom. It was indeed the crocodile. It had passed the redskins, who were now on the trail of the other pirates. It oozed on after Hook. Once more the boys emerged into the open air, but the dangers of the night were not yet over, for presently Nibs rushed breathless into the midst, pursued by a pack of wolves. The tongue of the pursuers were hanging out. The baying of them was horrible. Save me," cried Nibs, falling on the ground. "But what can we do? What can we do?" It was a high compliment to Peter that at that dire moment their thoughts turned to him. What would Peter do? They cried simultaneously. Almost in the same time they cried, "Peter would look at them through their legs." And then, "Let us do what Peter would do." It is quite the most successful way of defying wolves. And as one boy, they bent down and looked through their legs. The next moment is the long one. But victory came quickly, for as the boys advanced upon them in the terrible attitude, the wolves dropped their tails and fled. Now Nibs rose from the ground, and the others thought that his staring eyes still saw the wolves, but it was not the wolves he saw. "I have seen a wonderfuler thing," he cried, and gathered round eagerly. "A great white bird. It is flying this way." "What kind of a bird, do you think?" "I don't know," Nibs said, awestruck, "but it looks so weary. And as it flies, it moans, 'Poor Windy.'" "Poor Windy?" "I remember," said Slightly instantly. "There are birds called Windies." "See, it comes," cried Curly, pointing to Windy in the heavens. Windy was now almost overhead, and they could hear her plaintive cry. But, more distinct, came the shrill voice of Tinker Bell. The jealous fairy had now cast off all disguise of friendship, and was darting at the victim from every direction, pinching savagely each time she touched. "Hello, Tink," cried the wondering boys. Tink's reply rang out, "Peter wants you to shoot the Windy." It was not in their nature to question what Peter ordered. "Let us do what Peter wishes," cried the simple boys. "Quick, bows and arrows." All but Toodles popped down their trees. He had a bow and arrow with him, and Tink noted it and rubbed her little hands. "Quick, Toodles, quick," she screamed. "Peter will be so pleased." Toodles excitedly fitted the arrow to his bow. "Out of the way, Tink," he shouted, and then he fired, and Windy fluttered to the ground with an arrow in her breast.